A crucial flaw in Schwab's Great Reset is that it puts too much faith in the ability of governments to re-engineer society in a way that better serves the needs and desires of all citizens.
An extinction level event.
Well, let's not be dramatic here.
Oh gosh. What's up everybody, this is Major coming at you with another kind of cool video.
You probably have quite a few opinions about what's going on in the news cycle right now. But it's important to remember one thing. You're wrong. Here's why.
Mentally, they're exercising you, whether you believe it or not. They're using all types of programmable exercises at us at all times. It's called brainwashing. So check it out. In this video, I'm gonna get real aggressive with talking to y'all because the time for playing is over. It's been over, but it's really over.
He wants a rethinking of capitalism that escapes the tyranny of GDP growth, so that companies create goods and services for the common good instead of maximizing profits. The phrase common good points to his fundamental misunderstanding of capitalism, which is nothing new. Central planners were using this idea to maximize their own power at the expense of individual freedom back in the 1940s, when Nobel Prize-winning economist F.A. Hayek wrote The Road to Serfdom, which would go on to sell over 2 million copies. The welfare and happiness of millions cannot be measured on a single scale of less and more.
Right.
When it comes to the politics, I think it's important to take into account that political action isn't just challenged by corrupted politicians who are only concerned with themselves, but also simply because it is extremely difficult, even for good politicians, to push for radical and costly preventative measures when there's no clearly perceivable reward to be gained for the current generation, and when the threat is so easily brushed off as alarmist. I mean, just go back 5 years and try being a politician who wants to invest heavily in pandemic prevention and management. It's just hard to gain support based on the precautionary principle.
The fear of a great escape, of losing control, is understandable because there are systemic risks that could destroy human civilization, including future natural or man-made pandemics, runaway inflation, and ecological disaster.
The communication problem also becomes simplified, and this, as we've seen, is arguably the most important problem.
And depends on a great many things that can be provided in an infinite variety of combinations. Every single one of the billions of people who populate this planet have unique goals and desires that are impossible to reduce to a unified whole, whether that's GDP or whatever supposedly holistic metric the WEF wants to replace it with. Profits are a signal to entrepreneurs that they are satisfying the disparate needs of their customers.
With the introduction of more and more devices that actually understand the human and help humans optimize their own performance, we will have a way to create a different type of intelligence, what I would call humanistic intelligence. The idea is that you can create a myriad of devices and sensors around us that interface and interplay with artificial intelligence in a way that makes humans much more symbiotic with their environment. So, the distinction between the biological world, the physical world, and the digital worlds will just blur, and we will integrate seamlessly across all of these dimensions.
People don't want to trust people with good ideas, but you'll go throw your money, your hard-earned money, at some damn scam and let them take it. That's another thing that pisses me off, but we'll get back to that later. So listen.
Small boats may not survive a storm, but a giant ship is strong enough to brave a storm.
But if we're all stuck in the same large ship, in the same storm, we're all going down with it when the winds finally get bad enough. Concentrated power itself presents an existential risk. A bad intervention applied to economies of the entire world at once can bring down the entire system. But the distributed power and humble trial and error of markets and decentralized governance brings progress in fits and starts with less risk of total ruin. What Schwab, Xi, and central planners around the world miss is that when securing the rights of the individual comes first, the rest tends to follow. The great escape from the 20th century is underway, and there might be nothing they can do to stop it.
So, when you feel confused, your AI will recognize that and will prompt you with commands. If it recognizes that you're fatigued, it'll send a command to brew the coffee pot or a message to your phone reminding you to go out and take a short walk and stretch your legs. So you will become integrated with your environment, and your environment becomes an extension of your brain. And I think that type of humanistic intelligence is really where we're going to see the future go.
One of the great lessons of the past 5 centuries in Europe and America is this: acute crises contribute to boosting the power of the state. It's always been the case, and there is no reason why it should be different with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Schwab is right that the war is the health of the state, as the writer Randolph Bourne once put it. And the government's response to COVID has been similar to military conflict in terms of the cost and the chaos it's engendered. World Wars I and II and the Great Depression ushered in a powerful modern welfare and warfare state that irreversibly altered America and the world. But I'm more optimistic this time, thanks in large part to the power of technology to provide everyday citizens with an exit.
It's simple, it's concrete and tangible.
Oh my god! What? That's it! What? That's the comet!
Especially once it gets close enough, it can be perceived by everyone with the naked eye, and its consequences also become equally obvious. It draws attention to how we talk about things, and to the real power dynamics and motivations behind why we do so. About how seeing climate change as a crisis to be solved is actually a somewhat problematic perspective, and about how we basically need a whole new framework to help us make sense of and deal with our changing environment.
Instead of the Great Reset, in which sclerotic 20th century institutions accumulate even more power,
I gotta apologize and do all that. Man, forget them people. They all bought and paid for. All these big time brown celebrity people, black people, paid for. They're leading you further astray. Don't follow them. Don't follow nothing they say. Unless they sending you something you can use, don't follow them. It's all foolishness. What's really happening on the street is your ass gonna be hungry, or you're gonna not have a house to live in, or you're not gonna be with a group of people that can help sustain your life. That's what's about to happen. They got us all compartmentalized. The American dream, live in a subdivision, subdivide. What does that mean? You're subdivided in a house with a bunch of boxes to divide you further mentally. They use symbolism to control us. So when you live in a house with boxes in it, every room you go in, you're boxed in.
The mind-controlled video games are proving to be an efficient treatment for diseases like depression or hyperactivity disorder in children.
And it is certainly true that if we had all unanimously acknowledged the issue, had immediately taken radical global action, then perhaps things would have turned out very differently.
All of our research right now relies on using the closed-loop video games that we've created, so far just using the performance, not the cognitive brain-computer interface. That's still very much in the research phase.
One significant obstacle to political action on the global scale is the question of climate justice. For example, there is the question of who is most responsible and, by extension, who should do the most to improve things based on the polluter pays principle, which is severely hampered by the debate about when exactly human-caused climate change began, and by the subsequent question of to what extent we should take into account that early contributors weren't aware of the consequences, which in turn has led to another debate about when exactly we knew that climate change was something that we were knowingly contributing to.
And then we apply these closed-loop video game treatments to see if they can improve attention abilities in many different clinical populations, including ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, but also post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, depression, and autism.
And for people like myself who live in small countries that are definitely vulnerable to climate change, there is also the frustration of trying to make political changes when bigger countries that are making a much bigger impact won't do the same. The UN is briefly mentioned as a sort of composite presence for the entirety of the rest of the world, but overall the comet and the political failure to act on it is presented as a mostly national issue.
You're trapped. Okay, if anything, you go get your damn dome home. At least you have a roundabout view of what's going on. Mentally, they're exercising you, whether you believe it or not. They're using all types of programmable exercises at us at all times.
This would be a great argument if it wasn't absolute bullshit, because of course, before the vaccine was rolled out to the masses, each of these vaccine companies conducted vaccine trials. This is where they injected thousands upon thousands of people with the vaccine and then set them off to mingle with the rest of us. So let's take a look at where these trials took place.
Yeah.
They're sneaking up on us.
Yeah.
Electronics and cars, which is also, it's also a creation, a mechanical creation, and now more than ever, they're driving computers.
Yeah, man. It's true.
What I'm trying to say is Ted Kaczynski was right.
Oh my God, we all know that.
He was right.
Did you ever read his manifesto?
No, I'm scared it's catchy.
Yeah, man, it's so...
All right, my friends, today we are going to talk about the Great Reset. That's right, the Great Reset is an interesting topic if you ask the left, and even some people on the right, they'll tell you it's a conspiracy theory, but is it? Is it a conspiracy theory? What is it? We're going to talk about this today because it is a conversation worth having, and you might be surprised by what I have to say about it.
First and foremost, to be great, they must have strong education, which is not just teaching knowledge and skills, but also strong character, civility, and work ethic. These are typically taught in the family, schools, and religious institutions. That provides a healthy respect for rules and laws, order within society, low corruption, and enables them to unite behind a common purpose and work well together.
Clinical trials for COVID-19 vaccines were carried out before they were approved by governments and rolled out to the public. Pfizer's trial enrolled over 45,000 participants across the globe, and Oxford recruited over 23,000 people in UK, Brazil, and South Africa. Now, this is very interesting because you'll actually find that each of the countries mentioned where variants first emerged just happened to be the same countries where the trials took place. The UK, South Africa, Brazil, and the US. But what's most disturbing of all is the backstory of Delta, the COVID-19 variant that is currently threatening to lock down the whole planet once again. Delta was first identified in India in December of 2020, and once again, by sheer coincidence, India also began phase 3 clinical trials of their very own COVID vaccine, Covaxin, just a few weeks prior on November 16, 2020. What's even more disturbing is that the Covaxin vaccine was released to the public before these phase 3 clinical trials were complete, meaning it was injected into the arms of millions of people with zero published data on its safety and efficacy.
And part of the influence or the power they have over our lives is simply just influence. Because they are a club of very wealthy people, they have a lot of politicians in their pocket. And there's really no better example of this than Biden. Biden, being the president of the United States, is very intricately tied to Klaus Schwab and Klaus Schwab's ideology. In fact, one of Biden's key proposals as president is actually copy and paste of a proposal of Klaus Schwab.
We developed these closed-loop video games that record your performance and use that data to challenge you in a very personalized manner. So if it's too hard, the game could back off. If it's too easy, it can make it more challenging. It just puts it right at that sweet spot. And then the game mechanics target different neural networks that we're trying to improve. So it could be a prescribable treatment, just like we currently use stimulants to help improve attention abilities in children that are suffering ADHD.
The media and the deep state is corrupt to the core. The America that we know and love doesn't exist anymore.
For example, the Dutch rose to defeat the Habsburg Empire and become superbly educated. They became so inventive that they came up with a quarter of all major inventions in the world, the most important of which was the invention of ships that could travel around the world to collect great riches. and the invention of capitalism as we know it today to finance those voyages.
It's not happening like that. They're not giving us enough time to do stuff like that because they're expediting everything. You're going to look down, you're going to look up, and shit you could have bought yesterday or today, the next day is going to be 30% higher. And then what you going to do about it? You complain, oh, they raised the price up. This too much for this and too much. I can't believe that they already did it. And it's going to go higher. And then what you going to do? They come out, gas going to be $10 a gallon. What you going to do? How you moving? How you moving around? You better move around. You still be able to drive your car. But you're going to have to decide. This is the point. They're going to make you decide. Now you're going to have to decide, do I get food, gas, or pay my house payment? This is what they pushing you to. And unfortunately, your children who have no choice in the matter, they just going to have to deal with this stuff.
It's a sort of prisoner's dilemma where the best outcome is achieved if everyone takes action. But no one is willing to take action unless others do it first.
It's true.
What I'm trying to say is Ted Kaczynski was right.
Oh my God, we all know that.
And then the third reason has to do with technology and the economy. And it is very likely that brains, not just of humans, but brains of all animals, have discovered through hundreds of millions of years of evolution ways to compute that could be much more efficient and powerful than what we're doing currently with our digital computers. So if this is the case, if we understood, if we were able to break this neural code and understand how the brain computes and what are the algorithms that are present in our nervous systems, we will likely revolutionize computer science, computer technology, and I would say the economy at the same time.
Lastly, there is the issue of the divide between the global north and the south, between the developed nations that both have the biggest ecological footprint as well as the most resources to do something about it, and the developing nations that have a significantly smaller ecological footprint, but also wish to progress and achieve wealth and prosperity like the developed nations have. Emphasizing how this is not a tool that only works on a vulnerable few, but one that we are all susceptible to.
The holy grail for this will be to create a much more symbiotic relationship with artificial intelligence. As we can see today, artificial intelligence is moving forward in leaps and bounds, offering us a myriad of new ways of being more productive and more efficient in how we conduct our businesses and how we manage our daily lives. With the introduction of more and more devices that actually understand the human and help humans optimize their own performance, we will have a way to create a different type of intelligence, what I would call humanistic intelligence. The distinction between the biological world, the physical world, and the digital worlds will just blur, and we will integrate seamlessly across all of these dimensions.
All of these social justice causes should have equal footing when you're deciding how to run your business as the demands of your consumers or, the demands of your shareholders. So this phrase is very telling about the Great Reset, because the Great Reset wants to reset capitalism as we know it and replace it with what? They want to replace it with an economy or an economic system where it's not based on the market, it's based on stakeholders as defined. The stakes that they're talking about are very leftist social justice policies.
Fox, they're on TV, but in the city's free, fake news, propaganda, conspiracy theories.
So this is, as I said, this is kind of a definition of what is the Great Reset, and you have to understand who's behind it.
Criminal cabal in our FBI. The FBI is the crime family. Collusion is not a crime.
And how he defines it to understand what it is. Now, this sounds far away. The World Economic Forum, who cares about the World Economic Forum in Switzerland? Do they have any impact over our lives? And the answer to that, unfortunately, is yes, they do. They have a tremendous influence over our lives.
and for capturing the feeling that the entire world is losing its mind.
To start, you're completely missing the point, and everything you think is actually at odds with reality when you look at the data.
And boy, has it ruffled some feathers to dive into a complex societal issue.
And there might be nothing they can do to stop it. The question is, do they make getting there easy, or does it happen the hard way?